on manners, which are the mutually agreed norms for routing security. These are called manners. So now we will give a very general approach as to what manners are so that you can all understand it and then explain it. We will be explaining this in a super simple way. And the goal of this session is for you to understand that this is a matter that is cross-cutting, and you can discuss it through multiple approaches. So this is the content that we will be dealing with in this session together with Carmen. We will be discussing statistics. You will be able to identify that these are topics that have to do with the day-to-day connection to internet. So we will begin by talking about what are the problems that we want to approach through manners. So to provide some general background, we want to give you a few theoretical concepts as to how we interconnect through the internet. So imagine that internet is made up of multiple bubbles. Each of those bubbles is a community, it's a network. It is a network that is made up of multiple internal resources. And each of those bubbles is identified by a number, which is called the autonomous number. So these bubbles are interconnected through the BGP protocol. And this BGP protocol is basically about finding the best route to get from one bubble or from one autonomous system community to another. So how does this happen? How do these routes come to be? Well, it's through routing tables. These routing tables are created based on information that each autonomous system publishes, fed by the community of that system itself. So what that means is that I have a bubble or a number that is identified by an autonomous system, and the number is 200. And that autonomous system number behind that number has a lot of information such as topology, IP type. But the thing is that if I want to connect from one point to another, I just need to identify that autonomous number system in order to connect to that point. So given that concept that you can imagine, we can say that there are multiple vulnerabilities in this protocol or in this kind of interconnection. And we will be focusing on 3 specific threats. But what we do want to share with you is that these vulnerabilities exist every day in the internet. One of the vulnerabilities that can affect a number of autonomous systems can affect all of its surroundings, because we know that the internet is fully interconnected. So what happens in one node directly affects to those neighbors and to those neighbors' neighbors as well. So these are global scale incidents that cascade because they are affecting all the other networks because they are interconnected. So you know that when internet was created, the biggest accomplishment was to interconnect networks, and security was not a priority back then. But with time, security became more and more important and basic for the interconnection, because if we lack security, we cannot trust that internet connection. At least we cannot connect freely because we're always looking out for what might happen. So that is why security in the way in which internet is managed makes us feel trustworthy in the work that we're doing in the internet. And because internet was connection focused, this internet connection was based on an honor code. So that means that when I am connecting autonomous systems, I am relying fully on the information that that system is providing me in order to interconnect with that number. So that interconnections between autonomous numbers are based on an honor code. And right now, all the way to the present, there are certain mutual agreement policies established between operators or between autonomous systems that actually interconnect based on a document that is signed. That is how simple this is. So I say, okay, you can connect to me, I can connect to you, but it goes beyond. It doesn't actually cover technical specs or what kind of information you will be sharing. And that's because we are based on this honor code. And because of this, and in that context, there are too many vulnerabilities. This is a subject that perhaps has not been so widespread or had so much an impact in the net for us to really focus on it, but these are really points in which we need to focus. Now, the effects of a situation in which an interconnection is not secure can take all the way up to hours for one to realize that something happened, and it can take even more time for us to solve the problem. So the problems that we might have because of issues with the BGP protocol can be caused by someone with ill intentions, or they might be involuntary, because the BGP protocol is very easy to operate, but it requires a lot of precision when we are executing it. So if we make a mistake in the prefixes or the numbers or the information we're publishing, that might lead to an entire network failing to operate. So there are many specific cases and examples of different cases where networks stopped operating. Of course, I'm sure you know about the case of Pakistan with the case of YouTube and full countries that have become unconnected. But we can see here that in terms of the statistics, routing matters and the vulnerabilities that we're trying to attack happen every single day. They might be transparent or not. We can see this all the way in the side of the end customer. So the routing incidents happen every day at multiple levels within the network. So now we want to talk specifically about the different kinds of threats that we want to approach. The first one is hijacking or route hijacking. Then we have route leaks, and then we have IP address spoofing. So with regards to prefix or route hijacking, here you can see the image. We have an autonomous system number that has connected to another number. And through that, what we are doing is we are publishing all of our resources, our clients, our IP addresses. It is all the information that we are publishing to other ASNs. And through that information, the other ASNs know how to get from one point to another. I want to identify an IP address such as 888. So what you do is you start looking at the BGP routing table and you look for the shorter road for you to get all the way to 888. And in order to get to that particular point, you have to do that through multiple ASNs. And you know that because the Google ASN said, hey, this is me, I have the 888, and this is a route that you can take in order to get to that IP address. So through that route, if there are any mistakes, imagine if your ASN is publishing one particular mistaken IP, what happens is that if you want to get to a specific IP address, if an ASN is publishing a prefix that does not belong to them, the traffic goes there. So hijacking happens when this scenario happens, when an ASN is publishing a prefix or route that does not belong to them. And that's what we know as a hijacking. Now, the second threat is the route leak. And let me explain this through an example. So I have an ASN. Let's say it's a university. I have a university that has an ASN. They have their numbers and they have two ISPs. And at the same time, those two ISPs have their own ASNs. So because of redundancy, I have two ISPs and I am learning from the ISPA and from the ISPB. And at the same time, I am teaching those two ISPs. But what happens if I have not established proper policies and I teach the ISPA what I learned from the ISPB? That is, I teach them the shortest route. So the shortest route from A to B will be myself as a university. I will be in the middle of them, so it's only 2 jumps from one to the other, while the route should be somewhere else through the internet. And that's what happens when we get a route leak. What I'm doing, I am teaching or I'm learning routing information in a place where I shouldn't be. That node should not be teaching or learning certain information. So we're talking about traffic filtering here. So we need to know specifically what we can learn and from where we can learn. So that would be the second incident that we're trying to deal with. And then the third one is the IP address spoofing. And the case of this, the spoofing happens when a user or a device takes an IP address identity that does not belong to them. And you would say, okay, how can that affect them? Well, if we think about a malicious intent, then we can create, in the specific example of a DNS, we can assign an IP address to multiple devices. And you know that the DNS is focused on responding. So if they get the query, they do not validate where it's coming from. They simply respond to it, and they will send a response to the IP that originated the query. They will not validate whether the IP address is valid or not. But they do send the response, and that response will get to the person who owns that IP address. So what we're talking here about is an amplification attack. And we should know here that this, of course, implies that there's a malicious intent. So we're talking about 2 services that are going down, the original users and the server that is getting too many queries from one particular IP address. So that's when we're talking about IP address spoofing. Now, in the technical world, there are multiple solutions that manufacturers have implemented, for example, with encryptions, with RPKI validators, et cetera, et cetera. Nevertheless, the deployment of that technology isn't sufficient if we compare it to the number of threats and vulnerabilities that we find across the internet. And at the same time, we do not have sufficient reliable databases from operators. Normally, operators set up and deploy their networks, they start working, and that works. So we really don't have a general database that is reliable enough for us to identify what are the networks that are connected over there in the internet, which is why we need everyone to have a standard approach in order to discuss routing security. Now, these policies for routing security should be based on collaboration and a consensus. Within internet society, you know that participation is promoted. They are promoting internet that is secure and open for everyone, and this follows those exact same lines. Based on that, we want to raise awareness among people and operators, bearing in mind that all positive actions will have an effect on the entire internet ecosystem. So a way for us to start working on security is by working first on websites, by having more secure networks. And if we are not operating networks, we might want to raise awareness among network operators. And if we don't contact network operators, we can talk to users too. We can explain to them how this works, and then them, by talking to their own ISPs and operators, can ask for more routing security because they might have a general awareness of what we're talking about now. So I think that the important thing is for you to know that if we want to work on this, we need to work together. We need to raise awareness among the ISPs and operators. We need more of them to join the initiative because security, of course, depends on each of the stakeholders and interested parties, from users, providers, and all intermediaries. So the more we focus on security, the better results we will get, and the more secure internet will become. So moving away from all those concepts, I want to move into statistics, especially into data from the region. And our dear friend Carmen will explain this a bit more. Go ahead, Carmen. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the space. Now, I am going to be sharing some statistics with you as to what incidents across Latin America looks like, about what has been happening in the past few years and what has been happening in the last year. Leah was mentioning that every single day we find more incidents, routing incidents keep on occurring. But we also need to know what we're dealing with. And in order to do that, we need to measure it. We need to measure what actually matters. So the MANRS community is made up of experts, decision makers, and then researchers. And now what I will show you is the result of the work that those people who are very much concerned with routing security and the number of incidents are doing in Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is a really simple slide that you can see here. This is a survey conducted by Augusto Maturin in 2019. It was presented in a LACNIC event, and he talks about routing security in the LAC region. And he actually updated this, and we need to update our slides too. But even if that's the case, we can still talk about where we're headed as a community and how the community is responding to the challenge. So by 2019, as Augusto Maturin shows us in his research, in 2017, at the global level, over 15,000 incidents occurred, out of which 4,950 happened in the LAC region. Out of those 4,950, a number of them, 707 were hijacks and 497 were leaks, but the impact was even bigger because close to 3,746 caused outages. Augusto showed then what happened in 2018. We see a slight decrease in the number of incidents. They continue happening, but they have been reduced. We move from over 15,000 to over 12,000. In the case of the LAC region, there were 12,598 incidents, where 438 were hijacks, 275 were leaks, and 2,573 were outages. And it shows now what was the projection, yes, which was a slight decrease. So this actually shows that in our LAC region, incidents keep occurring, and us as members of a community need to see how we can operate and what we can do as network operators, or as executive managers of companies, or even as users, as Leah was saying, in terms of how we can share the relevance and the importance of becoming a part of the MANRS community, so that everyone can hear about this and so that everyone in the community can work towards making internet more secure. Now, this particular graph that I will show you right now is information that has already been published that has great value for the community. And we have statistics here from January 2021. And you have here the historical record of what happened in the past year from January 2020 to January 2021. And this is information for the LACNIC region. And you can actually find this in the MANRS Observatory, actually. I will show you later on how you can access the observatory so that you can also have direct access to this incredible tool that we have available for us. And what we have here is that during 2020, which was chaotic for everyone, that caused many areas of opportunity, of course, was no exception for the incidents for the internet. So here I am sharing with you that effectively in Latin America and the Caribbean, there was a peak of all the way up to 150 incidents. That was in April. And we can see the kind of incidents. As a matter of fact, there were hijacks, there were leaks, there were issues with configurations, and there were multiple networks that were implied. Here, the highest peak were 120. So this is historical data, but I can explain to you a bit more about these incidents. Here we have a comparison as to how the community is acting in terms of good practices. Leah will explain to you what the actions of MANRS are, and she will explain what are the practices that we can adopt to make internet more secure and decrease the number of incidents that many times cause great troubles for us. All the way here, we can see how the community is adopting those practices. So this blue shows that there has been an improvement in the adoption of practices. Over here, we can see statistics that are also available in the observatory tool. And Leah and I want to show you a comparison of the statistics in January 2020 and January 2021. Later on, Leah will tell you about MANRS and the actions adopted by MANRS, and you will see how the community is adopting multiple actions, but you will also see how those who are part of the active community of MANRS and those who are not. Here, we only have the LACNIC region, which is the community that we want to focus on today. And we can see how many networks have actually adopted good BGP practices, how many are on their way to adopting good BGP practices in order to deal with anti-spoofing in this particular case, or to deal with leaks and with hijacks that Leah mentioned. And over here, you can also see the statistics for anti-spoofing. And over here, you can see how the community is behaving. Leah will later on explain a bit more about what these actions are about. But what I want to share with you is that the community, the LACNIC community, which is the community that we are focusing on today, from January 2020 all the way to January 2021, has in fact been responding positively in order to focus and face and deal with these routing security incidents. Along the actions, we see that there has been an increase from 81 all the way to 87% of adoption of the MANRS actions, and then from 9 to 16% with regards to how to secure internet resources. So we have statistics as to what incidents look like right now, but we also have statistics about how we're moving forward step by step in order to strengthen the heart of the internet, which is routing. So Leah, that was it for me now. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to talk about this. I'm sorry. This, what we wanted to show you here is how the number of incidents very slowly are decreasing because of the awareness that we are raising and because of how the community of ISPs and operators are adopting good configuration practices. And this blue line is the number of MANRS participants. So we see that at the global level, the participation increases while the incidents decrease. And now, Leah, I'm sorry, but it's back to you. Thank you, Carmen. This is our, I think, a last slide that wants to encourage you to continue working in the initiative. I think we all need to be part of that blue line. And this presentation is just about that. It's just about encouraging you to help us make that line continue going up. You need to understand that you are a significant part and you will have a significant role in making things better. So now we've talked about incidents, we've checked out statistics for the region. So we want to specifically focus now as to what MANRS are, how MANRS is helping us, what is it that we need to do specifically, and how we need to work with internet operators, and what end users need to know about MANRS to ask for MANRS. So MANRS is an initiative that seeks to improve the security and reliability of routing across the internet. And it's based, as I already mentioned, in the collaboration of all interested parties. It is a participatory community. It is a community that has a lot of people that have become very much aware of the security of internet and the importance of keeping the infrastructure of the internet secure. And at the same time, MANRS sets up standards for routing security. So it is a document of good practices as in order to start implementing routing security that more likely all operators or many operators will be applying, but it provides them with a checklist to know whether or not they're doing things right, and it makes them feel secure that they are. So what are the MANRS actions and what do they look for? The MANRS actions are trying to indicate an advanced security posture of an organization or a network or a community, and they actually seek to, or they want to eliminate violations. And many times these security actions are not available. And because they're not available, many times the service is not available. And of course, that hinders end users. They also avoid routing incidents. They help networks identify in a quick, efficient way what are the problems that might be happening around their interconnections. It also improves the operating efficiency of a network by establishing or identifying problems very quickly and easily because the network is organized, because the network is controlled, because the network is based on good practices. It also improves the communication between operators because there is a community of operators that is created and they are all very much aware of the importance of security. It is also a space where operators can share information about how to troubleshoot. It also provides feedback and it identifies the concerns that many companies may have that focus on security. So there is an internal feedback that is very much enriching for those network operators. So we could say that if everyone uses MANRS, everyone benefits from it because we're participating in a community that is concerned and committed to the security of the infrastructure of the internet, and it creates an internet that is more reliable, more secure, that provides more freedom of action, more security, and that is continuously improving. Now, adopting the MANRS actions implies continuous improvement and continuous work. So we could talk about best practices that are always changing. We can talk about dynamic best practices. And the more operators are applying MANRS actions, we will all be in harmony. We will talk the same language. We will talk about how to improve the internet. And definitely will be reducing the number of incidents. And of course, the effect and the impact of those incidents will decrease as well. So it is important to indicate that MANRS is an important step ahead. It is not a definite solution, but it is a good step ahead. it's like a checklist of good practices, right? So I can say, okay, my network is really operating because I have been able to identify vulnerabilities, I have been able to identify threats. So by carrying out these actions, I will be able to minimize the threats. So as long as it's an operator, I am identifying these things and sharing them with other people, then we will improve. So if I am an operator and I'm part of MANRS and someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to connect to your network, I will say, hey, I comply with MANRS. MANRS are these steps or these actions that I'm complying with. I am a secure network. So the least I could ask of you is for you to be secure too, because we are all working based on this consensus in a shared environment. So as I was saying, this is not a definite solution, but it is a significant step ahead. Within the MANRS, we have multiple programs. Well, these programs are the MANRS for network operators. We have MANRS for IXPs, and then we have MANRS for CDNs and cloud providers. Specifically, in the case of MANRS for network operators, the MANRS for network operators offers 4 specific actions. The first 2 are operational and the other ones have to do with a decision. And what I would dare say is that many operators do use all 4 of them, but maybe they don't even know that they are doing their job right. So they just do them for the sake of it. So now let's look at the actions for operators. First, it's filtering. So that is, what am I informing? What information am I sharing as an operator? What am I sharing as an operator? And what information am I receiving? So when I take care of myself, I take care of everyone. So I need to have filtering policies. I need to nitpick with regards to what is the information that I am getting from other autonomous systems, because what I get from them will define the traffic that my users as an operator will then get out. So I need to have good filtering policies for prefixes and for queries. The second action has to do with IP address validation. So here we are actually avoiding the third threat, which had to do with the IP address spoofing. By enabling this feature in the equipment that interconnects with other networks, will allow us to filter, or it will avoid that the origin IP that is not what it says it is, does not get to my network. So this has to do with those edge operators. So as I was saying, this is an action that I think is less compliant with, but it's very useful. As a matter of fact, it's not non-important, and people should use it in MANRS. Now, with regards to coordination, what happens is that network operators should register in a database of global access that can be accessed by anyone, information for the network. So this is my network and these are my ASNs. And if you have any issues, you can contact this email, you can contact me through this phone. You can also add information saying that I connect to all of these other autonomous systems as well. So imagine that I one day, as a network operator, have one of the problems that I mentioned, right? I have identified what the incident is, and I would like to contact someone to tell them, hey, you're involved in this, and if you make a change, you could probably fix everything. So if I go into this database that is globally accessible, I can quickly and easily solve my problem. And I can, apart from solving problems, this is a point for opportunity for networks. If they have registered and updated their information in a global database, other operators can connect with them. And an interconnected network has traffic that flows better. So I look for the database in Bolivia and I want to connect to an operator in Bolivia because I see that there's a lot of traffic in my country. So I go into that global database, I identify network operators, and I can send them an email or I can call them only if that information is updated, of course. So it is important to register, but it's also to keep the information updated. And then the last action has to do with global validation. To do that, we have the support of the RIERs. We have a LACNIC region here. So we are being assigned internet resources such as IP addresses and ASNs. And there we can validate that the resources that have been assigned to us actually belong to us through those registers and those certificates. So in that way, another operator that wants to connect to me can use the LACNIC database, for example, and know and say, oh, this operator has these data assigned to them. So as an operator, you can say, okay, I can connect to them or I can let their prefixes in or not. So that's what global validation is about. So those are the 4 actions for operators. So if we go back to the statistics that Carmen showed, we know that they are encouraging, and by now we have over 550 operators participating in MANRS, and the number continues growing. And the LACNIC region continues growing as well. So I think that that's the challenge that you as members of your chapters have, that has to do with having more participants to share this discussion in your countries, to make the MANRS program known and just spread the word. Now let's move to the second program for IXPs. This program was launched in April 2018. Initially, it had 12 participants. It had 12 IXPs participating in the program. And we identified that working with IXPs is a great opportunity because they have multiple operators that are associated to them. So it is possible to reach more operators than by working one by one. Apart from that, the IXPs are concerned with having safe neighborhoods, if you will, because they want to build trust, but that trust can also be reflected upon by having good routing security. So working with IXPs is a great opportunity to spread the MANRS initiatives. In the IXP programs, there are 5 actions. 3 of them are mandatory and the other 2 are optional. The first one is filtering. I also mentioned this before. This basically has to do with knowing what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. Then the second one has to do with promoting MANRS. And this is really simple. The IXP that wants to promote MANRS across its operators with any of the initiatives that are suggested here also has a check here. They can provide assistance to their operators to implement MANRS. So then we go back to the operators program. They can also provide help with the actions that they carry out. They can also guide an operator, join in the IXP and see if they comply with MANRS or not, or they can have incentives for those operators who meet the MANRS actions, so they might have additional benefits in the IXP if they do. Now, for this specific point, both Carmen and I are working with Internet Society. So if anyone needs help in an IXP to meet this action, we always offer our help to talk to the operators in that IXP. As a matter of fact, tomorrow we will be meeting with the IXP of Yucatan. And on Monday, we have a session with the IXP of Bolivia. So we will be spreading the word about MANRS with them. We will talk about the actions with them, but at the operator level. So now, continuing with actions for IXPs, we have the action of protecting the peering platform. It is important for the IXP to has published the information as to what it allows to do and what it doesn't allow to do internally in the IXP. So policies need to be clear, they need to be well drafted, and that helps having a better exchange at the internal level of the IXP. So these three are mandatory actions. The fourth is not. That is just having a global communication platform. So the members of the IXPs can have mailing lists, they can have groups, they can have platforms, etc. Just a space for global communication to discuss problems and easily deal with them. And the last one is to have a monitoring and debugging system, like Looking Glass tools for web management systems to deal with incidents, to be able to identify the traffic between the operators. It is, if you will, an overview, a looking glass of the IXP. Many IXPs actually use this, and that's a good practice. So those would be the 5 actions. And with those 5 actions, we know that there are multiple IXPs that comply with them. There are 64 IXPs that enrolled in MANRS. We had 59 last year, and this year we have 64. And these are many IXPs because we're talking about communities of operators. So these are encouraging figures for sure. Now, this is the 3rd program, and this is the newest program, which is for the content creators, CDNs, and cloud operators. We're talking about Google, Facebook, we're talking about Netflix. Those that provide content. So they have their own policies, but for them, routing security is significant. And as they are creating content, we consume that content. So that content needs to be secure. And an anecdote that I have is that whenever you want to connect to a content provider directly to improve traffic, or because of your broadband or whatever, those that are participating in MANRS, they say, okay, if you want to connect to me, I would like to know if you comply with MANRS, because they are already taking care of their own systems, because those incidents have a direct impact on their reputation even. So it is important that you know that we have these partners, these allies, who are also implementing the actions of MANRS. So there are 542 ISPs who are part of the initiative. There are 63 IXPs and 17 CDNs and cloud service providers. So we're growing for sure. So you now know about the actions, you know about the programs that we offer. So we need to think about how to get started. That is how this operator that says, okay, I'm sold. I want to implement MANRS because I want to do all these things. What do I do? Okay, so this is the toolkit that we can offer you to conduct a self-evaluation and to know how we're doing with MANRS. And Leah will now explain them. Thank you for that. So I want to share what you can offer the operators or the IXPs, where you can find this information so that you can motivate those operators or IXPs, explaining to them that participating in MANRS is voluntary, it is free, No one is forced to use it, but it is beneficial for everyone. And Leah will tell you more about the benefits of using MANRS in business. But what we want is for you to share and spread the word about the fact that MANRS is really easy to enroll in if you want to participate in any of the programs for IXPs or CDNs and cloud providers or for operators. The only thing that you need to do is to complete a form. Just complete that form. And many of them already do several of those actions, but they do need to write it down there in the form. They need to provide evidence. But I think that this is quick to do. It is rather straightforward. I think it's harder for them to find the company logo or to have information about a contact or about the website. So sometimes that admin part is harder than proving that they comply. You can go to the website, www.manners.org. So anyone who wants to join in the programs, they can just choose the program and go into the registration form. Now, you have multiple resources available. There is a lot of material that has been published in the website because the community builds and creates documents and tools because they want to share them. You have a resources section in the MANRS website. You can find research here. You can find guidelines here. You can have them, as you see, you have them over there. And the network operators who are administering internet resources find here a guide or a checklist to know whether they comply with different actions. And they have a checklist there. So they see what it is that they need to improve to work on spoofing or work on filtering, or maybe they know that they need to simply update their information in a database to meet another action, or if they haven't signed their internet resources, so IPv4, IPv6, maybe they can do that. So for us as members of the LACNIC region, there are many things that we can do, and we have all of these resources available for us. You can go in there, you can download the PDF manuals, or you can download presentations as well. Now, there's another big tool available, and it's available not just for you, but for the global community, and that's the MANRS Observatory. This is a tool online. It is a dashboard where you can measure the level of compliance with MANRS actions at the global level or at the regional level. So maybe we want to see how LACNIC is working on compliance, as we mentioned already when we discussed statistics. We can see it over here. So note that you can go to https :/observatory .manners.org, and you can go there. You can see the public view of this observatory. And even if this is a public view and you don't get the full extent of the tool itself, you can exploit the information. It has a lot of open information available. You can find information about your country there. You can see how we are conforming to good routing practices in our country, or when Leah and myself have to work or support a community from another country or an IXP, we can go into that tool. We can analyze what the statistics are like, and that's great for us. And so you can do that too if you are sharing information about MANRS. You can go into the tool and you can pick up the statistics. So this observatory is a dashboard that provides a clear indicator as to what is the state of routing security and resilience of the internet at the global level or at the regional level or even the country level. You can actually look at statistics per month or per year. You have information all the way all the way back to August 2018, which is when this observatory became available to the global community. And the observatory is actually made up from information from the community. It is the community of network operators and researchers that makes available all of these statistics so that we know what's happening in the internet, because at the end of the day, we use and coexist in the internet and we all help it. So I think this observatory is a gift that MANRS is sharing, and this is a gift from network operators as well. This is an overview of what you can see in the observatory. I particularly love it. I think it's incredible. And I think that this will also help you motivate your communities when you share information about MANRS too. Now, the MANRS Observatory gets data from multiple resources. There are multiple tools available at the public level that are very much reliable. And the observatory basically collects that information and just places that information in a dashboard in order to provide statistics on each of the components, from how many people have had routing incidents or how many operators have signed their ROAs to do their global validation, for example. So the observatory is taking up data from reliable sources such as BGP Stream, SIDR Report, Caída Spoofer, RIPE-Stats, RPKI Validator. And what we want is to measure and have statistics to know how prepared we are as members of a region or as countries to deal with those incidents and those vulnerabilities. And we can see how the initiatives of each country in adopting MANRS are doing. In the case of Mexico, we work with university communities, we work with an association of universities, and in that community, we are constantly doing webinars to raise awareness among university network operators so that they might adopt MANRS. We also provide support through practical workshops, and we have seen a step-by-step growth. It is voluntary, and we need to raise awareness among the community as to the relevance of administer BGP, and they become more aware and they start taking these responsible steps. Many times they're doing those things, but they just need to register in MANRS. In Mexico, in 2018, there was only one organization that was part of MANRS. It was a public university. And nowadays, there are 8 organizations. There are 4 universities and 2 ISPs and 1 company that are part of MANRS. So I think we've made progress in my country, and I think that that's thanks to the support that we got from our colleagues in the MANRS community, because they're helping us and they're supporting us in raising awareness. Now, the observatory has 2 views. It has a public view, but when you are a part of MANRS, you're a part of the community, you have been accepted, your company or your organization is already a part of that list. Those organizations are assigned a private view of the observatory. And now in the search section, they can actually look for information per ASN. And the objective of that is for those operators to see how things are going. Perhaps they can see how things are going with those providers that they are interconnected to. And then they can say, okay, can you also adopt MANRS so that we can become more secure? And at the same time, those organizations can get feedback so that they can do self-evaluation processes and continue improving constantly. So that was it for me. I want to thank you for giving me a space to participate. And Leah, the floor is yours again. And I'm at your service, by the way. Thank you, Carmen. I think we are running out of time, so I'm going to be quickly going through this. I want to tell you that there are multiple tools to teach about manners, and we want to show you the results from research that was carried out among 451 participants from the internet environment and ecosystem. And I want to show you what the results were like. Next slide. So what we learned out of this research is that the issue of security is relevant at all levels. It's relevant for companies, operators, and even for end users. The research has also shown that the knowledge on manners is low, but that the desire to have security is high among all participants of the internet ecosystem. And also that companies are willing to demand all internet providers comply with manners. So we could say that manners adds value for ISPs, thinking especially that we're talking about a rather flat market where everyone offers access services. So this could be a differential for multiple ISPs. As a matter of fact, we could dare to say that they could participate in the procurement terms. Perhaps a company that wants to hire and procure an ISP can ask within the terms of the agreement, we want you to offer routing security. So I want my ISP to have routing security, and they can ask for them to comply with manners. So that's a differential. So why should ISPs join manners? Well, because it can lead by example. Because through routing security, they take care of themselves and they take care of everyone around them. Also because belonging to manners provides them with company security credentials, so it's a differential for them. They can have a growing demand of clients who know about the initiative, so they themselves can be submerged in manners as long as the end users know about manners too. And also there is a lock-in of this security cycle. And let me give you an example of this. When we talk about banking, we know that banking invests a lot of money on security, but what happens is that if the provider, the ISP, doesn't have security, they won't have security either. So don't forget that the measure for security is always the weakest link in a chain. So if your provider is not giving you security in routing, even if you are investing a lot of money, they're not secure enough. There might be a weak link that might get away from them, and that might affect them negatively. So these points are a really good way to incentivize operators to implement manners. Companies may not be network operators, but they are users and they get internet access. So as I was telling you, these operators will have a level of security implemented as long as all other participants have implemented it as well. Apart from that, they are significant stakeholders in security because they can demand operators to implement manners, and they can ask for that, or they can add that as a requirement for the procurement of their services. So now you have a lot of material that you can use to talk to operators. Now, with regards to governments and why they should promote manners, it's also about leading by example. Multiple organizations can implement manners, and they can ask operators to implement manners as well. These organizations are internet clients, and they can work on public policies that incentivize routing security as well. At the same time, we can talk about research networks, universities, because they also have network operators, as the example that Carmen was mentioning when we worked with Mexican universities. So you can take this message up to universities because they also operate networks as well. And even if they are not operating networks, they can help you raise awareness as well among organizations. So academia is a strong collaborator for sure. So now you have knowledge as to what MANRS is. You have information, you have material. Internet Society provides materials such as these presentations. The number and the data of incidents is updated. New reports are shared. And we encourage and we congratulate organizations who enroll in MANRS. So it is important for everyone to participate, and we need more networks to become engaged in the actions. We need to have more networks joining in the community and for them to be constantly evolving. The more organizations that we have participating in MANRS and its good practices, the less routing incidents we will have, the less outages we will have, the less vulnerabilities we will have. So internet will be stronger, more secure, and robust. So now that you know a bit more about MANRS, you should know that Carmen and myself will always be here for you if you need us. You have plenty of material in our websites. You have specific scenarios for MANRS that you can download from there. Carmen and I have actually set up the programs, and we work with multiple countries and multiple groups. And the experience has been lovely, really. But it has been a lovely experience, because I think that every conversation and every talk that we go through implies sharing a lot of knowledge. And I think that you will find that most operators have already implemented MANR actions without knowing, and it's just about enrolling and registering in the website. So this is something that's available for them. You can tell them, hey, you're doing things right. This is just a checklist. Join in MANRS. So I know a lot of people who are getting feedback, and we have been able to identify that we can share presentations for operators, for decision makers. When we engage decision makers in the experience, we also help them support their technical staff in the implementation of MANRS. So I think that we are finding roads to get operators execute MANRS as well. We've worked with universities, we worked with end users, plenty of organizations that are concerned about what they can do. And many times it's just about saying, hey, look, there's this program available, and this is really simple. Yes, for sure, Leah. And as a matter of fact, with multiple countries, what we've seen is that it's just providing support for network operators, as is the case of Bolivia or in Colombia. So we help them work on a project to strengthen their internet and their internet security. So I think that there's a lot of work that we can do. We can work with small ISPs, communities, because they start growing, and that's an important niche where we need to spread the message as well, Leah. Yes, for sure. So we are at your service for whatever you need, and surely you can use the material. But if you have any questions, we can share our experience, and you know that this keeps on being updated. So now that you have the basis to work with MANRS, we have multiple initiatives that are available for you, because this is not just about sharing information. We actually need to take action. So Internet Society has suggested multiple initiatives that you can work on, and they are divided by a level of difficulty. And I think that that's great. I always participate in the ISOC trainings, because you know that what they do one year is different from what they do in another year, and they're always updating their work as well. So if you want to consolidate the knowledge that we were mentioning, it is important to carry out one of these initiatives. So in the website, you will find a list of initiatives. The initiatives are moderate, difficult, or easy. And I think that the most beautiful thing about this is that you will have a target audience for sure. So you can, for example, work with government, so you can communicate to your regulator or local government about the importance of routing security. You talk to your regulator, or you can talk to companies, you can talk to the members of the academia, journalists. So the idea is just to spread the voice, actually, and the level of difficulty is moderate. And also, we can share these slides with you. You can modify them. You can do whatever you want with them. So share an email with us and we'll give them to you. You can also write a blog or an article. We know that LACNIC normally does that, and many other researchers do. You can investigate. Perhaps you all already have material of your own, and the idea is for you to share it, right? You can also have webinars on MANRS policies. You can have technical webinars. You can work with the NOGs of your country or from other countries as well. You can work with the IXPs in your countries as well. So the idea is for you to have an approach, to talk to them, and to see what these initiatives are about, and then move on to perhaps deeper scenarios in the implementations. But you've already taken the first step. You can also have discussion panels on MANRS policies, how many countries know about it, how many countries are participating or implementing their MANRS policies in their organizations and in their countries to promote routing security. You can also carry out campaigns and social networks about the importance of routing security. You can discuss the issue, you can discuss the solution. The idea is for everyone to talk the same language, because there will be multiple people along the way who are concerned about routing security. So I think this is a wide array of suggestions for your initiative. And the deadline for you to submit your initiative is, I think, June the 30th. Is that correct? Yes, by June the 30th, you should have implemented and have an authorization for your initiative. So yes, once you decide what you want to do with your initiative, you need to talk to your chapter coordinator. You need to share the initiative with your chapter leaders, implement it, and then publish it. And as a product of this, actually, from the material, from the trainings that we've conducted, we've gotten videos, we've gotten translations from past initiatives, and also new talent, because there are people that have really felt comfortable and enjoyed this discussion, which is the case of Jaime Olmos, who creates incredible presentations about IP address spoofing for us. So I think that it's a lovely community that you'll come across and that you'll be joining. So I think without further ado, that's it for us. I don't know if you have any questions or any concerns. Yes, there is a question, says, does the fact that the maximum incidence in 2020 was in April 2020 is connected with the fact that it has to do with the beginning of quarantines in Latin America and the Caribbean, and because of the quarantine, the use of the internet increased because of virtual home office and classes? Surely in April 2020, the traffic of internet increased in Latin America. Well, yes, definitely there has been a clear increase in traffic in Latin America and the Caribbean because of the pandemic, but also the interconnection between the networks has increased, and perhaps that might lead to having more incidents, because we know that the IXPs have become stronger, of course, during the pandemic, because we needed to minimize latency and increase traffic. So there are more end-to-end connections. So as an operator, I might be connecting to 3 international outlets. So I am going to be optimizing my traffic and connecting to 5 more local operators. So there are more connections. And this is positive, of course. We have but at the same time, we have more options of making mistakes at the time in which we are interconnecting, or at the time we're publishing our addresses or our prefixes, and our routes might be hijacked, for example. And surely, if we think about the malicious intent, of course, we know that those malicious agents find vulnerabilities and they use them. So there was an increase, and it might have to do with the fact that we have more interconnections at the global level. Yes, and there's another question, which is, what is the country that has the most incidents? Carmen? Yes, I'll provide support for that. That was a great question, by the way. There was a slide that was missing in this presentation that focuses on Latin America and the Caribbean. And there is a slide where Augusto Maturin shows the comparison of the countries that have the most incidences, both for hijacking or for leaks, and what is the percentage of how many of those incidents were involuntary and which ones were malicious. You can look for that, Jose, in the presentations of Augusto Maturin. It's Brazil, actually, but it's not Brazil. Let me go back. There's a reason for that, because Brazil, at the level of Latin America and the Caribbean, is the country that has the most internet resources if we're talking about autonomous systems. And of course, it has more IPv4 and IPv6 blocks. But even if that's the case, we do need to recognize that Brazil is one of the countries that, because of its magnitude, because of the population, the adoption, and even because of the exchange points, is the country that has adopted MANRS the most. So they are a reference point for us in the region as well. So that's what I wanted to share. And also to add something more, if you're interested in research based on the initiatives that Leah shared, you can use the observatory to analyze statistics, make comparisons between countries, months. But LACNIC also offers a tool called Ford Monitor. And this Ford Monitor can show you the status of statistics, and it makes available which are the networks that have had incidents, both of hijackings and for leaks. So those are wonderful tools, and this is a rich community that we can get a lot of information from. Thank you. So I don't see any more questions. So I think we can wrap up the session. Once again, I want to thank you. It was an amazing session. As a matter of fact, it was great that you were so clear on the technical concepts and sharing the experiences in the region. Once again, I want to invite all the attendees to participate in their initiatives and contribute to their project. I want to thank Carmen and Leah, and I want to thank our star interpreter, Sol Nemet, who is interpreting into English for us today. So once again, we want to thank all of you. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon or night, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow in our Internet Way of Networking session. For those of you who enrolled, thank you, everyone, and have a lovely night. Bye-bye.